Thank you. A very good evening to one and all. Welcome to one more MOS webinar on practice management, and this time it is on how to begin a new ophthalmic setup. So all of us in some stage of our life have gone through this phase where we have started from meager beginnings and then taken up our practice forward. But it is those early days where we need the maximum guidance, where we need help from people in terms of not only their inputs, contributions, but also at every step, we need to know where are the hurdles and how we can overcome them. So, in that sense, Maharashtra Ophthalmological Society has taken up this mantle of having a webinar on some of these issues where we can touch upon, and we have a galaxy of great, eminent panelists with us who have given their valuable time in order to guide us in the best possible way. So, I'd like to first invite our president, Dr. Santosh Bide, sir, to take it forward, and I'd also like to thank Dr. Sonal Palya ma'am. She is the president of Yosi, as this has been organized by MOS along with Yosi. So over to you, Dr. Santosh.
Thank you, Dr. Anaga, and good evening, everybody. We are here with the 7th episode of Practice Management by Maharashtra Ophthalmological Society and Young Ophthalmologist Society of India. And in today's webinar, we are going to deal with all about before starting any practice setup. So what are the mandatory requirements? So we are going to talk about that. And we are fortunate to have a galaxy of faculties like from all over India. We are fortunate to have Dr. Nirmal Frederick, who is the president of Tamil Nadu Ophthalmologist Association. And we all know Dr. Nirmal and his work in NABH and other fields also. We are also fortunate to have Dr. Himanshu Mehta, who is the president of Bombay Ophthalmologist Association, a very dynamic president from Mumbai. Thank you, Dr. Himanshu, for joining. We have Dr. Hari. Actually, he's a Punekar. He has done his MBBS and MS from Armed Forces Medical College, Pune. And now he has settled in Hyderabad, and he's a great, asset to have in a webinar, and he will throw lights on and he will guide us, especially to the newcomers, what are the mandatory requirements before starting practice. We also have Dr. Sumit Lahane, a young and dynamic managing committee member from Maharashtra Ophthalmological Society. He's also a managing committee member of Bombay Ophthalmologist Association. Dr. Sumit Lahane, welcome. We have Dr. Gopal Arora, who is a past president of Maharashtra Ophthalmological Society from Nagpur, and he is going to start his new setup. So I am sure he is going to throw some new things and tell us the new things about what are the mandatory things before starting practice. We also have Dr. Manish Bapaye, a young scientific person from Nashik. We also have Dr. Sharad Patil, a senior ophthalmologist, again from Nashik, who has his huge setup in Nashik. We also have Dr. Nargekar, who is a president of Marathwada Ophthalmologist Association, and he is also starting his new setup in Aurangabad. So, friends, we have tried to have many combination of senior and young dynamic panelists, and let's begin with our webinar. So over to you, Dr. Anaga, and let's start our question and answer session. Over to you, Dr. Anaga.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Santosh. So after the introduction of our eminent speakers, we are all waiting to hear from them. So whenever we start a new setup, the first thing that comes to our mind is whether to do it alone or to do it with somebody else, because there is that fear of failure if you are alone and whether you'll be able to manage it or not. So the first question I would like to ask Dr. Himanshu. Sir, are you there?
Yeah, Dr. Himanshu is there.
Yeah, I'm there.
So, yes, sir. So the first question, sir, to you is how to decide whether to go solo or to go with a partnership. What are the factors you would consider before you would choose one of the two?
It's the classical example. It's a no-brainer, actually speaking. If we can go together with a group, with a kind of a setup for a new beginner to start with, the investment that is required, the specialities which are there, if we can have, it's a classical thing which we are taught in childhood, that a small stick can break, but you have a few sticks together, they all can form a lovely bondage and you won't be able to break them. So the same example holds true here. I strongly recommend that for a beginner today with no other support, it'll be wise definitely to share equipments, share the place, share the patients with each specialty, go through our ups and downs together, and that would be the way to go. It's not very common at this point, but that is the only way to survive with this high cost escalation.
I think Dr. Gopal Arora was in a partnership with somebody. Is he there so that he can give us some?
In fact, Dr. Gopal was in his private practice solo, and now he is starting with a partnership. So if he's there, he may throw light maybe later
He's
on.
the best person to tell us both sides.
Yeah. So
yeah, a very good evening to one and all.
Yeah.
Yeah, as has been mentioned by Dr. Himanshu very rightly, it's easy to break one stick, but when you have a bundle of sticks, it is difficult to break that bundle. But at the same time, it is difficult to carry that bundle of stick together. So the first prerequisite of any group practice is just leaving your ego at your side before you even think or forget about starting your group practice. But even if you have the thought of starting a group practice, you need to leave your ego behind. And there is a lot of other things which you can highlight later also. I mean, the chemistry between them and n number of advantages. And I'm sure, and everyone would agree that it is going to be the future, because with corporates entering into ophthalmology, group practice is the way to go in future, for sure.
So the message for beginner is that better to have a group practice rather than a solo practice, if it is possible. I think.
Yeah, because even
choose your partner wisely.
Yes.
Absolutely, the chemistry needs to be perfect.
Yeah,
See,
similar
because
to a bride or bridegroom, I think the same kind of what factors, like if you can just enumerate 1, 2, 3, 4, what factors other than your chemistry?
Yeah, see, because the basics of any doctor, or any intellectual person, when two intelligent people come along, the chemistry has to be perfect. You have to drop your ego. You need to have things apart from your academics and other things you have to have, because the group, when it comes together, you can actually make advantages of different quality that each one possesses. But at the same time, I mean, if there is one wrong person in that group is going to dissolve in no time. So choosing the right person and ignoring the wrong person, again, these are two perspectives that needs to be taken before actually a group is formed.
Great.
I think initially we are going to talk about this group practice and infrastructure and all other things, and then we will go to the mandatory requirements for beginners to have. So Dr. Nirmal, can you just throw light on the basics of infrastructure which is necessary to have your own setup?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Santosh. So the infrastructure requirement depends on the type of practice you're going to choose, whether it is going to be primary eye care or secondary eye care, or straight away starting with the tertiary with multiple specialty eye care divisions or scope of services. So most of us start with primary and secondary care with maybe one specialty like cataract and glaucoma, and then we add other specialties. So a newcomer starting a practice either on his own or as with a small group generally starts with basic refraction and consultation, and of course cataract is the basic, and glaucoma. So you need to have a OPD structure, maybe with optometry setup and all other things, it might come to 600 to 800 square feet. So in a good location. So the first and foremost would be to have this plan in a piece of paper, what we call it as project report. Even if you're going to go for a loan, they will first ask you a project. So what is your project? What is the size of the setup? What are specialties you're going to bring? The infrastructure includes not only the area or location, that includes the equipments as well as the human resources. You can't work alone. You need to have support people like receptionist, optometrist, and if you're going to start with the theater, a theater assistant or a nursing staff to help you with. So these are the basic infrastructure for a startup secondary eye care facility. So I would recommend OPD area somewhere between 600 to 800 square feet. And theater setup, I will not go into the NABH requirement, but decent theater setup would be another 400 square feet at least. That includes the support areas, loose areas, as well as 2 or 3 daycare beds. So 1,000 to 1,200, that would be the bare minimum for a secondary eye care specialty. In addition, we need to start with these mandatory statutory requirements. So that is important. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Dr. Manish, if you were to start an OPD setup, how would you choose the locality? What would be the criteria for you to choose the locality? Which floor, which area? What would be the best choice? What would be the factors that you would consider?
I think I would consider the areas which are where the payment potential of the patient is on on higher side. I would look for probably since we are talking about OPD, there are no really restrictions about what should be the road frontage, and because if you want to put up a hospital, you need 18-meter road at least in front of the
OPD plus OT also.
Yeah, so I think that then the choices get very limited nowadays because the requirement is 18-meter road is required. When if we want to put up a OT setup along with OPD, because there is no concept of daycare as yet in government, so we need to have a hospital registration for that, where 18-meter road is required. So I think our choices get very limited nowadays. A lot of builders seem to be putting up projects where there are multiple hospitals are available in same premises, so you can look at that, because if there is a general hospital which is available nearby in the same premises, then it is easier to for patient referral also. Secondly, in such projects, most of the times the other requirements like fire NOC, completion, um, biomedical waste, the things which have to be done by the builder, they are already taken care of. The rest of the things you can have to go through, like hospital registration, etc. But fire NOC, which is a big problem, they are already taken care of.
Permissions later.
Yeah.
So right now we are basically at how to choose the locality. So would you consider where the other ophthalmologists are working, or like you said, premium locality, but would you consider how close is the other ophthalmologist?
Madam, if I think that is a factor. If there are not too much rush, it is always good. But nowadays, with the number of people who are there, that is not always a choice, because you want to be in the area where there is more footfall. Typically, if you go in go in a periphery of the city, then the footfall of patients may not be there. The area where there is more of footfall, there are going to be other people who will be practicing in your locality. So I don't think one has to consider, one should be too much focused on that part. It should be more of what is a footfall in the area where you are putting up a clinic, how what kind of place you are getting, which will be how visible it will be. All those things have to be taken more into consideration rather than who's there in the nearby surroundings.
Anybody wants to add any more tips, maybe for beginners? Dr. Hari or Dr. Nirmal, can you add?
Two aspects. First is whenever we choose a place, we might want to have more square feet area, so we try to go to the second floor or the first floor. It is always better to limit your entire thing to a single floor. The reason being, a lot of your compliances in future will get very easy. So even if you have to, pay an additional rent, a slightly larger amount, then still you have to crunch up the space slightly. Still, if you can just tighten yourself into the one floor, that always works out to be easier because your compliances becomes much more easier. That's one thing. Second is, I'll tell you faithfully how I found out the location for my hospital. I just opened Google Maps, search for ophthalmologist near me, kept on shifting the frame and search again, search again, search again. Where I couldn't find anybody in 4-5 kilometer radius, I found a main road, took my car, went to spot a place for rental. So that is exactly how I spotted my hospital, and I'm doing happy. I'm presently happy on that.
Would you prefer ground floor or first floor?
Ground floor always.
Yeah.
So
you have very good accessibility and visibility.
Ma'am, see, it is not only about that. Accessibility and visibility, you can put LED boards and give people to usher you in. That's a different thing. But the availability of lift, now you will end up having multiple inspections, multiple compliances. The NABH people, this people, that people, everybody will come. Everybody will ask for lift permission, lift license, lift size. Fire NOC will have, the moment you have 2 floors, your complications will increase. You will have to double up all your infrastructure everywhere. You will have to have a critical care crash trolley at both floors. You are actually doubling your requirements. So if you can manage, just put the store on the top first floor, put every clinical part on the ground floor, fantastically fine. Now, one more thing, in the beginning, there was a mention about this group practice. Wanted to just add a small point there that, in group practice, gone are the days when we used to come, you also come, let's start a practice. No, it is better to have a copy structure from day one. Put it on document, even if it is a friend. Put it in a document, put it in incorporation, how much share is, how much we are putting. So the ownership is distributed according to the investment, and the same directors or partners can be employed in the hospital again. So you can even have one ophthalmologist friend of yours who is investing and coming only once in a week. You pay him salary according to that. So it can be, these things has to be put on paper. Never go by verbal agreements. Put it on paper.
All sorts of scenarios also to be included in those.
All sorts of scenarios. And another thing is exit clause.
Exit clause.
Exactly.
Exit clause.
You have to have exit clause before you start a group practice.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And clarity of thought and understanding, so that there is no misunderstanding.
You are saying it, put it on the paper, means what sort of paper?
On paper.
Legal paper?
Yes.
No,
advice of advocate?
No, have a project report. See, most of us start with our own money, but always go for funding, at least some part funding from the banks or venture capitalists, because they would want everything put in paper, whether it is a solo practice, group practice, or company. They would want everything in black and white. So it actually helps. That includes the exit clause, what Hari was telling. So the entire structure is on paper, so it becomes easy for the newcomer. It might take some time. It may look very big in the beginning, but once you start putting things on paper, it really works out. So you have a plan on paper for the next 2 to 3 years. And also, as for the location, ideal is to have a location in a busy area where there are other ophthalmologists. So recently there was a study on this, because people tend to go where eye hospitals are there. So the extra footfalls and the area makes a lot of difference. Accessibility is very, very important, particularly for eye care, where we deal with a lot of elderly patients and vulnerable patients. Accessibility is very important. Not only the accessibility with reference to the ground floor or commercial lift structure, but other mode of transport should be close to the station, should be close to the public transports like bus stand. So that makes a lot of difference in the initial practice time.
It's a very good point. Yeah, very good point. Regarding public transport, it's a very good point. Dr. Aniruddha, would you like to add anything? Or we go with the second part of the question. Since we are thinking of having a place, should we buy it or should we rent it? Actually, should we purchase a place or should we go for rent? Maybe Dr. Himanshu can also give his opinion. And Dr.
Yeah. I'll say a little more for the previous question.
Yeah.
If you see all motor mechanics, they are in one area. All goldsmiths are in one area, Gold Bazaar. So if you say that to be isolated, it's a very valid point. However, don't worry about that, because I remember when we were young and we started practice, all senior consultants were at one place in Cherny Road. And they all, in one building, 10 ophthalmologists. So yes, what Hari is saying is definitely a good idea. Do what others are not doing. Basically get starting at a non-populated area or an area which is growing, like Noida was growing. If you had recognized 10 years ago that area was growing, that would be a great idea. Second, in Bombay, with regards to doing it on ground floor, any new building, don't try and buy not in an old building. Try and buy in a commercial place in Bombay where you get your licenses clearly. There is no ground floor left in Bombay in your buildings because everybody wants to park. So that is where the issue happens. Now, with respect to buying, if you are solo, buying a property quite often makes more money than the practice itself over a long period of time. All of us know that your residence has appreciated way more than what you might make in practice. That is one thing. However, if it's a corporate structure, which we were talking about, and I totally agree that it should be legal from day one, absolute clear what percent each one will get, how much equity everybody is getting, how will we share the equity, how much pay will be getting, what are our expenses, and the exit clause, very important, no question about it. And together with that, as you said rightly now, buying a place would give you more money in the long run. But if it's a group together, buying together a property is a very dangerous thing. So if you have borrowed money and you want to show losses in the beginning, your chartered accountant will tell you, buy some other property. But you can lease off. You can reduce your tax burden by taking the lease credit. So that's how I would put it that way. Plan it with a chartered accountant and a lawyer, a very well framed thing.
Dr. Aniruddha and then Dr. Gopal and Sumit. Quickly.
Yeah. Actually, if you lease or rent a property, that rent you can show as an expenditure. Now, if you buy a property, that EMI will not be considered as an expenditure. Like in tax also purposes, it will be easier to rent a property if you are starting with in a group practice. But individually, buying a place, if you can afford it, is the best thing, because here, as I said, the practice may not earn, but the place will earn you a lot of money. Secondly, as far as this is concerned, I think there is one more important point to be noted, is that it will be a mistake if you are looking for people who are similar to you. The only thread that binds people in good practice is the conviction that they will all grow better together. Because group practice has its own advantages. Like you have better family time, you can focus on your specific specialty, you have less, worry about the EMIs to be paid. The utilization of equipment is very, very good. So everybody in your group practice should be convinced that this is the way to go. So that is the only way, you can be a good surgeon, somebody can be a good communicator. So that things doesn't matter. It's the only one point that matters is everybody should be convinced that they will go along great together if they go into group practice. That's what I think.
Dr. Sumit, suppose you had a choice of whether to start OT also along with OPD. What would you do? Would you do both, or is it better to start with OPD first and do OT in some other place, hire an OT, and then after some time, once you are stabilized, to start OT? What would be the choice?
Ma'am, if possible, my choice will be always to start OPD along with the OT, because having your own OT setup gives you a lot of freedom to post your cases, to be in the same setup, and not to waste your time in traveling. Because I feel like when you are starting, the only thing you have is your time. Like what you can invest if you don't have money is invest your time. Because if you are available in the given time, whatever it is, 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, then slowly your patient base will build up. So you need to be available. What happens in having a OT at other places, that you are less available in your own setup. So the best will be that if possible, and the space constraints are not there, having a OPD along with the OT is what my suggestion would be.
Coming to the mandatory permissions now, Dr. Hari, what would you think about what is your opinion about the change of user that is now required, for the mandatory permissions?
Ma'am, I didn't get it.
The change of user certificate that is required nowadays.
If you buy a place, you need a change of user, right?
Yes, ma'am. That question I'll say pass, because I will not be knowing about it.
Yes.
I'll give you the answer. I've gone through the trouble of 10 years and 3 municipal commissioners.
Yeah.
I'll tell you how much sick the whole system is. Sorry, but it is very, very troublesome and it can create trouble for you in life. But you need it for the C form. You have no choice. So there is no choice. You have to make it. Otherwise, you can't get your C form. And if you don't have your C form, the insurance companies are not going to recognize you. So period. That is the answer. So if you are in a new building, you rather see to it that the change of user, the builder gets it for you.
Because these rules and regulations are not there in other states.
Yeah.
Specifically for Maharashtra and Bombay.
Yes. Nee, for Maharashtra everywhere.
So we are coming to practice over there in Harinam. So
welcome.
No, it is there in all the states. The Clinical Establishment Act, as such, is a health regulation of the state. So there are varying differences, even though it is a central act. So each state has adopted in a different way. Like in Telangana, it is a bit lenient because it got divided from Andhra Pradesh. Andhra Pradesh, it is still strict. So in Tamil Nadu, it is a lot more difficult to get the clinical establishment in a residential building. So you have to have a change of residential to commercial, or there are specific areas where you have to, if you are going to open a big hospital, exclusive for hospital zone. So now it is going to become a lot more stringent because they are focusing on having exclusive hospital or healthcare zones. So if you are going to have a Clinical Establishment Act registration, it's always, and particularly going to be secondary or tertiary care hospital, always look for a commercial area, especially take the permission as a hospital, not as a clinic and then add a facility. So that's where all the problems comes in. So once you have a theater, it is a secondary facility, secondary care facility, and it is classified under the hospital zone, either nursing homes or hospital zones. So whether it is daycare, unfortunately, in many states, there is no clause such as daycare establishment. In fact, our association should start fighting for this daycare because 90% of our hospital and eye care work is daycare. In many grown developed countries, there is an Ambulatory Surgical Center Act. So all the daycare institutions come under that purview. So the legal requirement, the space requirement, and the human resource requirements are all optimized for that daycare utility.
So we are also trying for that daycare. I think maybe Dr. Sumit can tell us more about it because we are trying for that.
Yeah, Delhi has been trying for a long, long time, and we also started the advocacy effect at Tamil Nadu. So trying to get over the lawmakers and see some reason from their side.
In Telangana, at least, they have something called as eye care.
Yeah, that's what Telangana is a recent one. They have a daycare category. So all the eye care will fall under that.
Yeah, like even my certificate, the resident certificate mentions eye care. It doesn't mention hospital, it doesn't mention daycare. It's eye care is separate. Similarly, they have separate for dental.
Yeah. In fact, I've quoted Telangana and a few other states like Rajasthan to our Tamil Nadu people to ask for Daycare Establishment Act as part of CEA.
So, ma'am, when you asked me where you should be, where you will look for a place, that is what I was referring to. Nowadays, this problem comes of a fire NOC, hospital permissions. So when you are looking for a place, and since it is for the beginners whom we are talking about, I think it's better not to start at your home and, in spare place and then try to change use because it's a big headache. Rather than that, rent a place or buy a place in the mini complexes are there where they are optimized for hospital use. So the fire NOC, which is again a big headache as far as getting those permissions and hospital registration. So these things are sorted out if you go to a place which is optimized for starting a clinic or a hospital. That is what I was referring.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anybody has any tips regarding the fire NOC? How you can get it easily or quickly?
Dr. Sumit and Dr. Gopal can
Ma'am,
Or
only
whom
better
to
way.
approach? This is for a newcomer. So
Yeah,
whom
Dr.
should you
Sundar is-
approach for getting the fire NOC? Just for their information.
Yeah,
Ma'am,
Dr. over
there
to you,
is no
Sundar.
easier way to get the fire NOC. As you know, it's the most difficult one. The easier way will be you take a place where there was an existing nursing home and they had all the things fulfilled. Then you just need to get the change of user done still. But the fire NOC and things are in place already. So that is the only easy way out. Otherwise, as Himanshu sir suggested, that you get it in a new commercial complex where you can press upon a builder and request them to get the things done while they are into making. So the rest of the headache, like Manish sir was mentioning, is little less. But there is no other easy way out that you make a new place and get a fire NOC. It's going to be very difficult.
Yeah. Earlier, we used to have the Shop and Establishment Act also. Dr. Gopal or Dr. Nalgirkar sir, can you
Yeah, yeah.
now
In
it is
especially in
applicable or not?
Maharashtra, what they are talking about the regulations, the municipal authority regulations you have to go through. But fortunately for all of us, Shop and Establishment Act is no more existing, especially in Maharashtra. And then you were talking about the second part about how to get the fire NOC. See, first is before if it's a individual setup, if you have a plot and you're constructing a hospital, then you have to first take a preliminary sanction from the authorities, which is a very simple thing. But when you have an appointed consultant and getting the final fire NOC is a task. But then if you follow all the rules, regulation, norms, still getting fire NOC, you have to, I mean, go from the back end and then it satisfy the people, and that is how you get it done. But then sprinklers and other stuff which falls on the norms of that fire NOC has to be met with whether you like it or not, whether they are required or not, but you have to get it done.
This Gopal is for a hospital. We are talking for a newcomer. The poor newcomer is hit by so many ifs and buts. This is after 20 years of experience and practice that you're talking of making a hospital. But for a newcomer to start in a nursing home or a polyclinic and or start his own place is the first question that I would like to address to the crowd.
Yes.
Basically, like you started up your clinic initially when you run an OPD, there was no need for a registration because that depended on how many beds you have. But if you have an OT and if you create biomedical waste, now it's compulsory that you need to register with the local corporation. The local corporation has it. Sometimes they have different laws at different places. So now our builder has a sprinkler in every area. Now I cannot have a sprinkler in the OT area. So if I remove that, then it's again an issue. The fire, NOC may get compromised a little bit. So I had to go through the whole procedure of, doing registering it, and I'm cutting out the spray. You cannot have in the OT and changing area. You can have it in the OPD area, but still in the instrument area you cannot have a spray. So for an ophthalmic, daycare center, you cannot have sprays at all. Like our equipments or autorefs, slit lamps would get, blasted out if we have a fire and the whole thing gets sprayed on. So what we did was they had to place one fire, extinguisher unit in every area, every room of the complex. So every complex and common areas like corridors, even the toilets has one that red thing hanging on. So that made do with our corporation as well, because I could not have sprinklers all over in my area. So this is a new issue which came through, but they need to have a fire NC anyways. Secondly, like we had another problem, it was that the builder had sort of jiffied things so that he gets a good go down area downside for parking. So the area which was used for parking was manipulated by him into and go down. Now, this we have to understand that this is our responsibility to ensure that the building has good parking, not the corporations. They may change the plans, they may approve anything that they like, but ultimately they take a sort of a affidavit from us that if there is a parking issue, then the doctor or the owner himself is responsible. That's some kind of affidavit that I had to give to the corporation. So whenever you are buying a place, you need to make sure that it has a proper legal parking place in that commercial area. That's one thing I think I wanted to add. Another thing is that when you have an OT, Another thing that was compulsory for us was that we had to have an agreement which we needed to submit to the corporation to get affiliated to an ICU nearby. So whenever we have an OT, there's a compulsion that we need to get, like that ICU setup would take care of patients if they have a problem in our setup. So we needed to be actually defining to whom we are going to send patients or to who are responsible if the patient has a problem in our OPD area. Because it's a daycare center, it's not a admission center. So that was one thing that we needed to. So these two affidavits, I think, are very important. We had to.
That is not very difficult. One of your colleagues can give you. As far as doctors are concerned, or having a pathology laboratory, that is all that is manageable. But as you said, fire is one. Anything to do with the corporation becomes a big issue every which way in any new place after a change of user.
So now let's move on to the HR part. Dr. Santosh. Let's move on to the HR management.
Yeah.
Dr. Himanshu, one question to you is, how would you decide how many employees you would want?
I think it's $1 million question.
At the beginning of your
In the beginning, I'm like the one act play only. If I come from left, I'm Ram. If I come from right, I'm Ravan. If I come from center, I'm Sita. So I have to be the ward boy. I have to be everything. I have to know my autoclaving. One thing certain for everybody. Definitely don't depend on anybody. You should know how to autoclave. You should know how to clean. You should know what you're doing. You should know how to fumigate your theater. No question about it at any given point of time. Having said that, well, you need one OT staff at least. You need a nursing staff which will be there, qualified. You need a receptionist, and you need one optometrist at least to start with.
So what do you mean by qualified nursing staff?
Very difficult. That's what I'm saying now. This is the $1 million question again. You need a certificate of at least, because you don't get your nursing. Yeah. Correct. So you're officially supposed to lie and get a certificate.
Because every 3 years we have to renew our registration.
Yes.
That time this question every time is there.
That's why my word was very categoric, official.
So is that problem there even in Tamil Nadu, Dr. Nirmal?
Yeah, everywhere. It is across, no? So Nursing Council registration is given only for GNM nurses. So it is mandated that if you are having a critical area like operation theatre, you need to have at least one nursing staff per operation theatre.
Sir,
even if it's daycare.
Yeah, Dr. Hari, what do you want?
The Telangana Paramedical Board has got a course which is Diploma of Ophthalmic Assistant. I'm not sure whether other states have it. So,
No. These courses are available. The Health Sector Skill Council has given a list of courses where there is common syllabus for ophthalmic assistants. Whether it is recognized by the Nursing Council, that is
what I did is I have a nurse who is Nursing Council registered. That is there, but I have around my small hospital has got 7 DOA staff. I don't have a receptionist. I don't have an optical salesperson. I don't have other staff. So what I have is the DOA. Now my hospital works in a slightly different way. We don't have when a patient walks into the hospital, one of these DOA people, whoever is free, takes the patient, and that same staff takes the patient to the refraction, consultation, counseling, explanation of the medicine, optical sales, everything that one person takes to the flow. So it's more of a concierge kind of a thing. So I have cut down my entire administrative staff. Now this entire ophthalmic assistant that I have, 7 of them, all of them are capable of setting the OT. I have trained them from day one. And all of them take their leave and vacations according to on rotation basis, so that the continuity is maintained. So that is how I am surviving without any. I don't have a separate optometrist. I don't have a separate OT, ward boy, or separate receptionist, or a separate accountant, or a separate optical salesperson. Now I ensure that whatever optical sales or counseling conversions these staff of mine does, and all of them will get a incentive according to their performance on that. So they are pretty much motivated on that part. So that is there. Now another benefit which I find is when a single person is in touch with the patient from the registration, consultation, optometry, and till the optical sales, that staff will come to know that should we sell this patient one, eye gear 2,000 rupees lens, or we should sell him an Crizal 25,000 lens. So the entire identification of which of these the market category that the patient belongs to, that becomes much more easier, and the patient have already established a relationship with that particular individual during that few some time that the person has spent in the hospital. So this is one method which I follow. So just wanted to get it out.
Yeah, Dr. Nirmal, one question to you is.
Yeah, let me add to Dr. Hari's point. So let's teach our younger colleagues to go by the law, right? So this may not be applicable for all practices. Hari is well versed with the legal requirement and also training the staff very well. But as per the requirements, we have to go by the degree, qualification, and what privileges can be given to our staff. As medical doctors, we have a set of privileges and statutory requirements from the medical council. So that we saw recently, it was changed and then luckily got back. Right. So we have certain privileges as a doctor. So we can only do surgeries, clinical procedures, invasive procedures, everything. Whereas the same way the nursing council registered nurse can give injections, can do procedure and assist procedures. Other peoples are not privileged and cannot be given the credentials to do or assist certain procedures, particularly invasive procedures. For example, in many places, optometrists are doing FFA and giving dyes injection, which is legally not allowed. So if you are going to train a set of people, you have to train them within the legal mandate. You cannot go and allow them to do everything. So a newcomer has to know this, because a nursing council registered nurse can give injections. They are privileged to do certain work in your hospital. The same way, mid-level ophthalmic personnel, DOA, or so many names are there, MLOPs, PMOA, so many names are there. So they are allowed to do refraction, vision assessment. They are allowed to assist the doctor in clinical work, but they can't go beyond that mandate. So you have to know this before appointing people. And like Dr. Himanshu said, initially, most of us work as from watchman to chairman, right? Then we, as the practice improves, we go on to add a lot more qualified and credentialed people. That is very, very important. To have a well-educated, trained optometrist is an asset. Having a good trained nursing staff during emergency is an asset. She can open up, she can put an IV line. So an emergency can happen even on the first day, right? So having an untrained nurse and dealing with the critical cases, vulnerable patient is very, very difficult. So please go by law, go by standards, so that you are safe from day one. Right. Sorry, I had to add.
Very, very nice.
Great input, sir. In fact, this answered my next question.
Yeah, crisply answered all the queries actually.
One thing that I would recommend to all juniors: don't take emergencies for granted. We are not used to. There's a joke amongst the anesthetists. कुछ हुआ ophthalmologist का तो बोलेगा डॉक्टर को बुलाओ.
It has happened.
Yes.
Hospital,
so routinely start a scalp vein, routinely do things. I today also love to, in a GA case, I intubate myself just to keep in touch with intubation. This is just not required, but I'm trying to tell you to give an extra point. You never know what will be useful when. And all of us have seen, I have seen patients suddenly after a peribulbar, retrobulbar has just gone into a shock. So knowing your fundas, having a defibrillator in the clinic is mandatory. Simple thing, doesn't cost much, but something which I just wanted to say as an extra thing. Forget your fire and all that. Of course, that is required, but this is something you can't escape. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, good points.
Yes. Dr. Gopal, one more thing. Suppose now, when you're starting a new practice, I think the HR or the employees are the maximum, take up maximum of your expenses. So how would you decide how to take your new employees? I mean, especially if they are on the higher side, like Sir said, definitely trained employees make a difference because they add value to your system. But how much do you think would be the percentage of the expenses of your HR workforce?
Yeah, before I answer your present question, I'll just go back to the what Dr. Nirmal Frederick and Dr. Hari was answering. I absolutely agree with Nirmal sir. What he has mentioned, the legalities has to be followed. But at the same time, because I'm sailing in a boat which is going from small river to a big ocean, so I agree with Dr. Hari sir also, because my thought process was very clear till date that you have to have multitasking. Every staff should know everything, right from refraction to counseling to how to manage the patient. That is what I've been practicing till date. But when it comes to a bigger setup, you need to have specified people educated and trained for that specific purpose. Forget about refraction. Even for counseling, you need to have a person who is perfectly trained in taking that patient to a different multifocal or trifocal level. Because if they're expert enough, then that practice would go to then multiply many, many times. Now, answering to your present question of HR, it is undoubtedly, I mean, no two thoughts about it. The social media, the HR, the people who are marketing and these stuff have come into picture, especially when it comes to a bigger setup. And to my knowledge and to my study, which I've gone to, I think about 5 to 8% needs to be invested in HR for the moment, even if you're starting a bigger setup.
Okay, maybe more in some places, depending from place to place.
To begin with, yes, 5 to 8% for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Sometimes it may go up even more.
15% is good.
Yes. Dr. Santosh.
Yeah, I think Dr. Himanshu wanted to add something about percentage in HR.
No, I think you can't economize on HR. And as he said rightly, as you move in life, you need specific person for specific jobs. What we cannot do everything. We are used to doing a one-act play. We have to stop that and decide that this is the anterior segment, this is posterior segment, this is strabismus, like that. So that is there. And don't economize. And the good old saying in the management parlance is, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. So yes, it that will help you every which way to reduce your stress in life. To pay well for your HR is a great asset. We have to get used to that.
Okay, so now we have.
We'll move on to equipment.
Yeah, so we have dealt with actually buying a place or renting a place, and now let's go to the equipments. So which equipments to buy, how much is enough, whether to buy or to rent, to lease. So we can have, let's start with Dr. Sumit and then Dr. Aniruddha also and all others later.
So, sir, for the equipments, like initial question answer itself, that for the OPD, what do you need is the basic setup, and most of the equipment, like since we are talking about the startup, the basic equipment will be helpful, and no financial interest, but Indian company who is making it, it cuts a lot of a cost, and they are making it, I think, equally good quality equipment. Secondly, you see a lot on AMCs and CMCs, because buying an instrument is not only a one-time expenditure. You need to take care of the equipment as well, because there will be people who will be using it again and again, and there could be a staff in a training that microscope can go damaged and things can happen like that. So it would be better to buy a basic microscope. Along with that, there are various glows available which can suddenly upgrade your microscope. A basic phaco machine will be a good enough thing to buy, and a basic OPD setup with instrument, if possible, a digital slit lamp or a simple slit lamp. And I think that is, and for in cases of optical biometer, A scan, a good immersion A scan, I think initially is fine. In case in the place like Mumbai, there are various machines available on the rent, right from the YAG to OCT to the optical biometer. Even that can be done. Like I am aware of a few senior surgeons for whom nowadays they want to do a premium surgery, and they don't want to rely on the A scan. They want to do a optical biometer only. They actually send those people who are renting the machine to the patient's house, patient is more happy that I'm getting service at home itself. Ghar pe aake optical bag mein ठीक है. So in places like Mumbai, that is very much possible. But that's what I feel, that we should start with the most basic setup, and the rest of the machines could be on the rent, or your colleagues who are around, you can take their help.
I think Dr. Manish is a retina surgeon. So can you add something? If a retina surgeon wants to start a practice, any tips for having instruments in the beginning?
My thought process is slightly different, sir, as far as the instruments are concerned. I think you should have good instruments right from beginning, because your surgical outcomes depend on that. So you may not buy a Callisto right in the beginning. If you're an anterior segment surgeon, you should have, and nowadays very good phaco machines are available from multinational companies, which are giving uh, very good performance, as good as high-end machines, almost as good as high-end machines. So as far and the when you are looking at buying a VR setup, if you're a VR surgeon, you should have a wide angle system. You should have vitrectomy system, which has high speed cutter, because your surgical time is reduced. You can give more time for seeing patients. Your outcomes differ. You give better results, and that right from beginning changes how you are perceived by your patients. So I think the better quality equipment, though at first it is little expensive, it pays back in terms of giving you time, and it gives giving better results. So as far as surgical equipment is concerned, you should not be going only for baseline equipment, but you should look at the performance of the machine and then buy it.
I think investing in instruments is very important. So you should do good investment in good instruments. Dr. Aniruddha, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think I agree with Manish, because whatever increases your efficiency and performance and makes you ease at mind, because you already have a lot of pressures going on when you start up a practice. And so a better equipment, a better solution will always ease up the pressure on your head. So I think whatever equipments that increase your efficiency, like microscope, or phaco, and optical biometer, you should buy them the best that you can possibly. The rest of the things probably you can compromise, like a chair unit, you can buy even a refurbished one, it doesn't make much of a difference. A lensometer, you can buy a refurbished one. And there are a lot of options now to buy refurbished higher end microscopes as well.
Yes.
So people, like you can get a microscope usually has an endless life, as far as I see. Even a microscope that I bought 25 years back is working quite well right now. So I think those things you should buy them, from a standard, from a good company, or from a whatever you are used to. So that is one thing. Secondly, I had a option of leasing those equipments from a company which buys the equipment for you and leases it out to you. And then when I compared, I found out that if I take a 5-year loan for buying an equipment, and if I lease the equipment from the company for a lock-in period of 5 years, I end up paying 60% less EMI than what I would if I buy the equipment. Means the equipment will never be mine, but I'm paying 40% less per month than when I buy the equipment. The advantage is that whenever something happens to the equipment, it's the company's owners to clean it up, to repair it, or take it back and replace it. Secondly, again, as I said, this money can be shown in your expenditure account. Whenever you buy an equipment, you take an EMI. The EMI cannot have any, you cannot have any tax benefit on it, because here you can show it as a project report and you can show it as an expenditure directly. So it will be directly become non-taxable to you, and the equipment is never owned by you. You can change that. Like now, after 5 years, some equipments get outdated. Sometimes they malfunction. You need to buy newer ones. So at that time, this company is a boon. Like you can say, tell the company, you increase your whatever your charges are, take this machine back and give me something else. So that is what it seems to be a very good choice too.
Yeah. So, very good.
Yeah, very good inputs. So, Dr. Hari, your inputs on that? How to plan?
Is there a leasing company? I would like to know which is the leasing company in the first place. because I tried to explore the leasing option in Hyderabad and Telangana, I couldn't find any. The only option I could find was one NBFC who was providing you the equipment, and the lease amount is equivalent to the same EMI amount, and at the end of the tenure, they are going to transfer that equipment to you at 1 rupee, so that it doesn't come onto your balance sheet as assets. So this is the only leasing option which I could find here. So leasing option is not a very rampant option, not a very easily available option as far as I understand, sir.
That is true.
Some
Only
of
I
the
found only
companies would be doing it, I think.
Sir?
Some of the companies would be doing it. It depends on the company also. So I think it might differ. Those policies may differ from company to company, and depending on the equipment and how.
So the only leasing model which I know which exists in Hyderabad is of an excimer machine of one particular company.
Yeah.
And that was given on lease to one particular surgeon just because of that surgeon's repute, and he's not at all a beginner.
One thing that I would just like to mention, out of all forms of getting money, debt from a bank is still the cheapest.
Yes, and that too when you
That's it.
go to
learn that even Reliance has a huge debt and Adani also has a huge debt. They've grown big by borrowing. I was very scared of borrowing money because I'll have to pay interest, and we always feel that paisa kaise chukayenge hum log. Feel free to borrow money from banks. Today, the leasing rates are way cheaper than what it was when we started.
Yes.
We paid 16%.
19.
So, correct, Santosh. So still, debt is the best way to borrow money, is my take-home message here. Don't be worried about debt. You will be able to pay all that somewhere in life. Being a hard-working professional, don't get worried. You will be able to pay your debt.
Sir, one small point on debt part, sir. See, whenever you take a loan, this is something which I would suggest all the people who are starting and buying to be careful about, because I was about to fall in this trap when I started. So basically what happens is you go and approach a bank for a loan for your equipment. So a bank can finance your equipment in two ways. One as a business equipment loan, and second is a medical equipment loan. So medical equipment loan is serviced by only few branches or few staff are involved in that. And in a medical equipment loan, the collateral is the medical equipment itself, just like a home loan. Where you buy a house, the house is the collateral. Whereas in a business equipment loan, the collateral is something else. You might have to give your home documents or something else, or your net worth or FD or something. So what happens, the interest rate in a business equipment loan is higher, whereas in a medical equipment loan, since the collateral is the item which is on finance, is hypothecated, so the interest rate is lower. So what happened is I contacted my nearest branch. That person didn't have, of one private bank, prominent one. That person and the manager didn't even have an idea there is something called medical equipment loan. He was trying to sell me this business loan at 14% interest. I did some reading, found out, and I found out that there was only one branch in Hyderabad which is servicing for medical equipment loan specifically. And instead of 14, I ended up paying 8%. And that too with no other document. And because the machine equipment itself is the collateral for this loan.
Right.
So this distinction between business equipment loan and medical equipment loan should be understood.
Very valid point.
Very well. Yeah,
so in cases,
sir,
in certain equipments, high-end equipments, the companies which are selling the machine, they themselves can arrange for this medical equipment loan through some financial institutions. So you should ask the people who ask the salesperson. They might do this for you as well. So the interest rate is even lesser than this. Can be lesser.
But they normally tie up with NBFCs. They tie up with NBFCs. They generally don't tie up with banks. Banks always have lower interest rate. NBFCs will have a slightly higher interest rate.
100%.
NBFCs are eager to give you the loan. Yes. They will close their eye for few documents, but banks are meticulous. The cheapest loan for medical equipment is medical equipment loan from a nationalized bank.
State Bank.
Especially if you are an account holder, you get 0.25% interest, even lower.
Yes.
If your current account is there. But the only problem is you have to walk around the documentation, the lens break.
They are not there to sell you. So whenever a product, like in LIC, never wants to sell you a specific policy. That is a term life insurance. And you must buy that.
Correct.
Same way NBFC wants to sell this to you, don't buy that. Buy what he said. Perfect, Hari.
When I was doing my research, at the same time, one NBFC, which has got tie up with Zeiss, was 14%, business loan was 14%, medical equipment loan from that same bank was 8%.
Oh.
Right. So this brings us to the question, Dr. Nirmal sir. Suppose now somebody wants to start practice, how would you make a budget as to how much would you allocate and what would be how would you guide them?
Yeah, that's the most difficult question because it varies between places, whether it is in a metropolitan city or a tier 2 city or town. So the real estate value varies. So it all depends on the type of location you're going to select. So that part we can keep aside. That is for the youngsters to decide whether they're going to practice in their own home or outside. Uh, the requirement for the infrastructure, as I said, around if it's going to be with theater or without theater. For a clinic, at least to start with 500 to 800 square feet. And so that ideally, initially, if it is leased out, well and good. But if you are going to rent it out, have a long lease, at least for 5 years initially. Don't go for this single 11 months period that is only for retail and residences. But for a hospital project or a healthcare project, better to take long lease. Otherwise, a lot of issues will happen. The moment you build a practice, your house owner will increase the rent by 30 to 40%. So always initially start with a longer lease period. Second is budgeting is equipment, basic equipment. Start with basic equipment. So anywhere between AR and good equipments will cost you around, and go for a good company. Don't go for cheaper ones. So always go for a standard equipment, at least in the initial phase. The costing will be 10% more, but it's worth it because the companies will stand by you and support you. And the results also will be very good. So initially you have to give very, very good outcomes. So if you are buying any equipment, you need to buy standard equipments. And no question on compromising the operation theater equipment, particularly a good sterilizer and microscope and a good phaco machine. So all this might be initially we worked out for a youngster a month back. It all came to around 40 lakhs for the theater equipments. It's a very basic theater. And for the OP equipments, somewhere between 20 lakhs. That includes the initial infrastructure, the refraction units, the chair units, and the decorating the doctor's room, the computers, and all those things. So somewhere between 50 to 60 lakhs for a good setup. So, but you can always start with a low budget and then keep on increasing. The loan part, I think the Hari has well said. Please go through a nationalized bank because they will ask for a project. So we'll have to put everything in black and white and seek the help of a chartered accountant. They will give good solutions for tax exemptions as well as the initial period. You may not be paying any income tax. You can waive off this, carry on for 7 to 10 years, and see to that you get all this tax benefits as well. And so these are the basic budgeting and staff budgeting. I think 30 to 40% initially staff budget. And many doctors don't take their own salary. I would suggest from day one, take your salary and on a monthly basis. So if your practice build up, take your professional fees for surgeries also. So that way, you know you are working for the company as a salaried person, and later on you can go on to develop as a director or chairman.
Amazing. Excellent. Very well, sir. Thank you.
Start rewarding yourself once in a way. It's
Absolutely.
fine to reward
Absolutely. Give a ESOP to yourself.
Yes.
Pat yourself.
Yes. Spoil your.
Dr. Nalgirkar sir?
Very good point.
Dr. Nalgirkar sir, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
So the next question is, once you have started, the thing that comes up to your mind is, when do I achieve break even? So in your opinion, for a beginner, if he starts, assuming that we have taken in the best locality and taken the best equipment and doing that, so when do you think usually we achieve break even on an average?
See,
So how do you monitor
ideally,
growth?
you have the equipment life is 5 years. So ideally, even if you go very slow and steady on it, you should break even as far as the whole cost is concerned within 4 to 5 years after you taking out your chunk out of it. So that is I think the aim that I have put. And there are
Operational
certain other operational break even. I think I shouldn't have a problem in breaking even there are recurring charges which you like every monthly you have to pay. That should not be a problem for even a beginner in the beginning, first 2-3 months time. The salary of the infrastructure, people, the telephone bill, the electricity bill, the corporation charges, water bill, whatever recurring expenditure you have per month, I think that should be that usually breaks even in 2-3 months time. So it's not only the question of reaching what you are spending monthly as an expenditure. It's a question of covering up for the equipment and for the loan that you have taken. So the loan EMI also gets added onto it. In spite of that, you should be taking your salary, as Dr. Nimal said, from the first day onwards. So you should take out your chunk of it, and then it should ideally break even within 3 to 5 years time. The whole setup as such.
Yes.
The simple word in business is 1,000 days to start with.
Sir, it is basically according to my CA, sir, the day you start paying income tax, you are breaking even.
Yes. That is.
And if it runs for 1,000 days, it will run without any input to it for another 5-6 years without doing anything also.
Dr. Gopal, how would you monitor your growth?
Yeah. Basically, I'm in the phase of transition from solo to a group practice. And the way that the day we actually formed a group, and my first statement to myself and to my other colleagues was that we are going to earn 50% less than even after 20 years of practice, what I'm earning now. It is going to go down by 50% from day one in a group and a bigger setup. So that fact has to be accepted, because it is going to give you a different stature. It is going to give you facility to make use of the best of gadgets, which in a solo practice I was never used to. But then there are downsides of it, and you have to accept it. But in the long run, as it is said, there's a good saying by Warren Buffett: if you don't try to make money when you sleep, you'll work until you die. So group practice is something that you have to take in terms of a longer duration than in a short-term practice.
Okay.
Dr. Santosh?
Yeah, and how do you monitor growth, Dr. Nirmal?
Yeah. So
Dr.
you need to.
Yeah. Dr. Nirmal, please.
Yeah. So we need to capture the data, practice data, right from the outpatient footfalls, the conversions for the surgeries, and the if you are starting with, ideally I would start youngsters to start with opticals. So the volume and business for the opticals. So these are essential business numbers, and you have to capture it on a weekly basis in the first 1 year and see see the trend, whether it is on weekdays or weekends. Obviously, weekends would be busier, and we have to see this month on month. So at least for the first 3 years, like Dr. Himanshu said, 1,000 days. So 3 years you have to monitor this every month. So you see the growth pattern, see whether it is increasing or declining, and definitely there will be cyclical progress. So once you know the basic numbers, so at the end of 1 year, see whether you have break even with such basic things. Obviously, to a second or third year, definitely there will be some growth. and you have to use these data as indicators and see whether you are progressing. So on the financial front, so apart from giving the salary, maintenance, and all the EMIs, so as I said, you have to take your own salary as well. And apart from this, you have to invest. Don't invest everything into the clinic. Don't put everything into the practice. So you have to have parallel smart investment strategy for your own money. So Himanshu is smiling. He would just give us some tips about some stocks.
Yeah, smart, yeah, true.
Okay.
Regarding growth, just give us your opinion about marketing, whether to do it or not, and what is ethical way of marketing.
Now, whether you like it or not, marketing is the way to go. NMC or all these councils will say about marketing, but there are certain leverages for the youngsters. So when there are 8 instances when you can uh, start marketing, I would suggest the other way. Use all these 8 areas where you can market, like opening a practice, adding a specialty, relocating yourself, adding a facility. All those things are areas where NMC has given leverage for you to advertise. Use all those options. And second thing would be to build your own brand. So have a practice name, build the practice as a brand. So improve your brand and market your brand. So that would be the way to go right from day one, because nowadays a lot of stringent regulations are coming for individual practitioners. You need to have a entity, and that entity have to be promoted. So whether it's a group practice or single practice, so brand your practice and then market your practice. That would be a diligent way to grow.
Dr. Manish, how much would you allocate? How much part of your budget would you allocate for marketing?
I think he has some issue with his mobile.
You're muted. Can you please unmute?
Yeah, no, it's getting restarted, so no problem. So my firmly believe that marketing in even in today's world, the marketing is word of mouth is something that is a marketing that works best in our practice. The marketing in my practice, marketing is to create awareness about the services that are available to the general public in terms of social media whether it is social media marketing or whether it is writing articles maybe once a year in the newspaper. But beyond that, I really don't spend a lot of money on marketing per se, in terms of giving advertisement on TV or repeated advertisements in newspaper or writing, those health supplements which are there, going for that. I think still the word of mouth is the best advertising for you. And though it might take a little bit of time, that is what will give you long lasting recognition, because initial creating a lot of buzz in terms of social media marketing, you may get some patients, but if you're not good at the work, if you're spending too much on that, and this is a double-edged sword we need to understand, because if you're doing social media marketing, they are the people who are going to be reading your marketing on social media, and they are the ones who will give you bad reviews if you do not live up to their standards, which are usually very high. So in the beginning of the practice, yes, you should create awareness, but don't go overboard in marketing and spend a lot of money is what I would suggest.
Good.
Ma'am, in marketing.
Yeah, Dr. Hari, you want to add something?
Yeah. See, the thing is, lot of people who are starting new practices, we have seen one trend of tying up with non-healthcare delivery companies in order to market. I think we spoke regarding this, Dr. Anaga, recently, and there are companies who we can call them aggregators. So there are people signing up with them, and that actually is detrimental to the business on the long run, because the patient that is supposed to come to you directly will tomorrow come through them. So as a beginner, it might appear very tempting that you will sign up with these companies and will have a very good patient flow. But remember that patient flow, these companies takes around 30 to 40% of your revenue out. and actually takes your reputation for a spin. And when it's a very difficult way, it is very difficult to wean away from them as well. We have got legal notices flying in around in Hyderabad for various hospitals from a few such companies. And all of them are beginner ophthalmologists who wanted to have a foothold and entered into this kind of agreements with these companies. So
Yes, sir.
I advise against that. So
Especially the newcomers should be warned about all this because
Dr. Nirmal, anything about legality of such aggregator?
Yeah, I think we've given almost all the associations have given advisory to its members that it is against the medical council ethics, both old as well as new. And so any commission, whether you're sharing with a medical person or non-medical person, is against ethics and it's against the law. So the associations will not come to rescue or support if you go by this. So all the advisories have mentioned this right from IMA to, and we are recently in TNOA, we again issued the advisory because there have been some complaint from other members.
Correct.
Coming to the last part of our discussion, and that is administration. So, Dr. Samit, you have started your private clinic a few years ago. So, how do you manage troubleshooting and how do you manage the administration on your own?
Ma'am, actually, it's a very difficult question, and I think you can answer better than me in this. So, ma'am, this admin job is you will be knowing better that it's more of a villain's job, and you have to behave in a very politically correct way because you need a good staff to be there. At the same time, you don't want people to be lazing around, and to be very frank, you need to take everyone along with you. Like out of your 10 people working with you, 7 would be good and 3 are somebody जिनको साथ लेके काम करना है. That kind of a people you are going to have. So what presently I do as a part of a learning only that I take out certain time in a week where I stay back in the hospital when everyone is gone, and then I reassess whatever the statistics and whatever is going on, expenses, and where we should spend the certain thing or where we are lacking or how the service could be better. And if some staff with like if I feel is underperforming or because of that the whole environment is getting disturbed, then specifically calling them and telling them that this is what we are not expecting from you. So all these things we do, and I'm trying to train one of the staff members in such a way that lot of other things are done by them. Like I don't like to go primarily and scold somebody that this is not happening correct. So there is somebody who does that villain job for me and tells them that what you're doing is not making administration happy. So then they are already warned up that something is going wrong, and they try to behave themselves. So all these things we are trying. Basically, it's trial and error that I'm learning from, and of course the tips from the people who are in the practice for more than 15-20 years would be better, including you, ma'am.
Anybody would like to add anything? Yes.
As you have said, Sumit, you have to be politically correct with the staff and you have to deal them. And every individual is different. So your way of tackling that individual, there is no rule of thumb that the same rule will work for all the staff.
Yeah. So it will be administration not only from staff, that is HR, but also troubleshooting in other areas, in work areas, like for example, bulb is off or some, inverter is not working and so many things. So you need to delegate people for each of this so that somebody is made responsible and that person reports to you. So you need to be a able administrator along with being a good clinician, which I think is a very difficult balance to follow. So Dr. Himanshu sir, what would you like to say? You are a great administrator as well as a great clinician. So how do you manage it?
Both ways, I agree to disagree with you, Anaga, but here the fact is we as doctors frankly are used to telling everybody sab theek ho jayega, don't worry. We are never like a builder. Hey, karo, ye kaam kar kyun nahi kiya? Aisa. Unfortunately, we are soft targets from patients and from everybody who works in our clinic also. We can never shout, we can never fire. We are always worried that there'll be a revolt, they will not like it. So, like, Santosh also said here, everything with a very padded glove that we are doing, all with a kid's glove that we are doing. So it's a tough. So you rather have a Shiva there, who's your administrator, who fires and gets the job done. I think that is the only thing way out to get
For
the thing
beginner, it is a little difficult, no, to have an administrator in the beginning. So
I know in the beginning. So again, it's a compromise because you will have to do everything. The more good you are, you will end up doing everything. And or classical story in an office is, out of a staff of 15 people, if 2 people are doing good, you will always call them. And the others who are not working will always never be called. This is the classical Pareto law of 80-20.
So what definition of small, medium, and large, Nirmal sir? How would you define and how do you scale up from small to medium to large?
So essay question, you want me to answer like a MCQ, the last question. Right. So it's from small, I think I would put it as a small clinic with the primary eye care and a theater. And medium, if you're adding some more specialties like retina, pediatric ophthalm, and some basic super specialties. And then tertiary care, like when you build up to refractive surgery and all the super specialties and eye care. So that is by way of what we call a scope of services. And in terms of volume, so if you are seeing, say, initially 30 to 50 patients in a small setup, so that is small to begin with. And medium is, if you are seeing at least 75 and single doctor, 75 to 100 plus. So that is kind of medium. But if you are a group practice, 150 to 200 OPD per day and monthly 50 to 700 surgeries. So that would be medium. And large practice, of course, apart from the cataract volume, say 100 plus to 200 per month. So you need to have volume in each of these specialties. So this is as per the volume. So how do we go from small to big? Right, it has to be consistent growth, and you have to monitor the numbers. You have to monitor the growth every quarter and see whether you are progressing. So if you are declining, you have to find the reasons and see why you are declining, and you need to take corrective action then and there. So this is most of us have growth story from small to medium and to big. I think that would be the most traditional way of growth. Unfortunately, youngsters are looking at sudden growth right from the beginning. That is where all the stress and other issues crop up. So never look for sudden growth in practice. Even in medicine, we call sudden growth as tumor, right? So we want organic growth, which can be sustained over a period of time. And in the process, you should not hurt yourself. You should enjoy the journey. You should enjoy the progress as well. So if you're looking for short steps and shortcuts, definitely stress will creep in. So you have to invest diligently and ensure that you grow methodically.
Absolutely. Perfect answer, sir. And I feel there's just one small tip is if we can invest in an EMR right from the beginning, even though it might cost you in the beginning, but that is one of the most important ways how you would actually get your statistics perfectly. You cannot have registers and manually counting, and beyond a point, all that will become very difficult. So you should invest in an EMR system so that you have your data, you build up your data, and that itself will help to grow your practice.
Yeah, definitely. Apart from clinical ophthalmology, after coming to practice, you should learn some administration, you should learn some management skills, and you also have to master computer skills and Excel. That is very, very important. It's a very, very good tool. And if you have a EMR, most of the reports will come in Excel formats. It is easy to see the progress.
Anaga ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, ma'am, Frederick, Nirmal sir just told about Excel. So I just wanted to share something, if you would allow.
Sure,
So
sure.
see, this is something I had made a long back. This is my entire workup of how the clinic finances is. This is before I started my clinic. This is around 5.5 years old content. Rent, deposit, partition, AC, water fitting, each and everything was calculated. Now, this is without surgical. If I add surgical, this microscope and everything was added. Then, along with that, I had other tabulations where my income and number of patients were tabulated for every month to see how it is going. And I could have the optical sale revenue and everything plotted how it was going. This is basically the what you can see. The dip is the COVID lockdown. So this Excel, if you use, it's a fantastic tool. Everybody should know that. Yeah. So that's just the only thing I wanted to show.
Absolutely wonderful. Yes, I think that is the way to go, because that is the only way you know where you are going, whether you are on track or not, or and then it gives you a perfect idea. And also regarding financials, I just thought one thing. We need to look at your financial statements, your profit and loss statements, and your cash flow every month. We have to review at not only just for beginners, but also for at every phase of your career, because that is where you can decide where you're lacking, where you need to put in your own money, and then or may take a more loan, or if you have already established, then you can add some new equipment. So that is a very important decision, and maybe a little bit of financial knowledge also, literacy you should have, so that you can understand all these things, or you can ask your CA to explain. So Dr. Santosh, your thoughts.
Yeah, actually, I think very good thoughts by everybody. Good tips by Dr. Nirmal, Hari, Himanshu, Dr. Manish, Aniruddha, and Bhupa. So for a beginner, actually, no shortcuts. That is number one. Do whatever is legal. You have to do it legally. No shortcuts, no illegal things. There is no without slow, and if you're slow but steady, you will definitely progress. And best wishes to all the newcomers. That is what I would like to say.
Santosh, I have one.
सर प्रॅक्टिसच्या सुरुवातीला खुर्चीची पूजा करायला लागते म्हणतात, तसं आहे ते.
कसली पूजा?
बसून पूजा करायला लागते खुर्चीची.
येस,
खुर्चीची पूजा करायला लागते.
खुर्ची उभवायला
वर्शिप द
लागते.
चेअर.
येस, खुर्ची उभवायला लागते.
करेक्ट. That's another way of.
So we say when you're working, you should have ice on your head,
Yes.
sugar on your
Either on the
tongue,
tongue, yeah.
and then glue on your bottom, so that you
Yeah.
just can work.
Yeah.
And
True.
we speak to everybody and just get work done and work yourself very hard. I think there's no shortcut to hard work.
Yes.
And we would like to thank each and every eminent panelists who have been here today. Thank you so very much from the bottom of our hearts for sparing your valuable time and giving your frank and excellent contributions, inputs, opinions. It has definitely helped us. It's been a good learning, not only for us, I think all our viewers, especially the newcomers. And hopefully all of us take tips from this and then go on in your practice. Thank you so much to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sumit.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you for the.
Rahul, you can
Thank you, Santosh.
stop recording. Yeah, thank you, Nirmal.
Thank you, sir.
It was great. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Okay. Let's log off.